Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Tech Report Podcast, episode 184. I'm your host, Luke McCready, and I'm here with Scott Wasson, Jeff Campman, and Ben Funk. This is the official podcast of the Tech Report at techreport.com, the #1 place for news and reviews in the computer hardware world. If you're not listening live, be sure to check out our Twitch channel to see us live for our next episode at twitch.tv/the Tech Report. We'd be glad to have you join us in the future for a live stream so you can offer questions to our panel, and more importantly, so you can see our smiling faces.
Hey,
all right, I didn't include any intro to get us where we're going.
No.
Hey, guys. Hey, team.
It's good.
Hi.
Hey,
I need to work on a transition there.
Yeah, we'll get it. We'll get it.
Okay.
We should just go ahead and ask people to, if they have questions and they're in the chat, go ahead and throw your questions out. We will collect those and we'll answer them. We have kind of an agenda tonight. We're starting a little late. We're on the wrong night because my kids have a back to school night thing tomorrow I need to go to. But we'll try and answer those. And I don't think we have a super packed agenda otherwise. So if you have questions for us, then get them in and hopefully we can address them. And hopefully they're not as ridiculous as some of the ones in the comments today that I don't think we actually want to talk about. So I don't know.
Agreed.
Your favorite Kardashian?
It's valuable topics.
Yeah. It's really,
not just favorite Kardashian in relation to the Tech Report.
I don't know how.
We should bring Bruno on and have him discuss that. He would be a good Kardashian judger.
That would be dangerous. Now,
Yes.
we'll have to get him on at some point.
Well, something I'm more interested in the Kardashians is what kind of loot you're giving away at the barbecue. Tell us, Scott.
So yeah, this just came through. Jeff, you wrote this up. So what is our new thing, our marquee thing that we're giving away here?
Well, it's kind of a surprise, but our friends, the guys over at Fractal Design, actually sent ahead 3 of their Define R5 ATX mid-tower cases in this fancy white finish to give away.
Yeah, and I think this is a rare item.
I've kind of been like monitoring. I don't think they've offered them in white up until now.
Yeah, so this is kind of a big deal, and this is gonna be probably like the winner of the cornhole tournament will choose like a prize, and they can choose one of these, like first, second, third place, and then we'll see. There's some arbitrary rules to giveaways at the barbecue. So I haven't actually thought up like things to propose, and we'll see what other people come up with, but we'll give those away. And those are great cases, and these could last you years, multiple generations.
Yes.
Because you could build in it and you could upgrade in it, and it's got room to expand, and it's just a really nice case. So I wish I could win one of these and bring it home. I think I'd have to buy one though. So I don't think I'm eligible.
No, I
Well,
don't
if
think
it's
any
arbitrary.
of us
If it's arbitrary enough, right, then like yes, maybe I could make the rules to where I win one, but it'd probably be very unpopular. So the other thing that I'm going to throw into the pot is, EVGA is going to throw into the pot actually, is this graphics card here, the GeForce GTX 980 Ti Superclock Plus, which I'm going to bring up in my like suitcase on the plane and hand to somebody. This will probably be the grand prize for the cornhole tournament. Although if you would prefer the Define case, I think you can choose that instead if you get first place. And the TR Barbecue, guys, is this weekend in Holland, Michigan. I think 3 of the 4 of us are going to be there, and then Ben's not.
I'm terrible. I'm sorry.
But it should be a good time. There's a thread on the site. There's a post about the Defines that you can find. We'll link to this again in the show notes. I don't know whether we'll have the show edited and posted before the barbecue starts. But if you want to come, it's not too late to come. You get your name in, go into the forums, find the thread, and get all the info on how to come and join us. So it's a good time. It's kind of all day, family friendly event. You can just come for the afternoon, or you can come for the afternoon and the evening, and the picnic on the beach and fireworks and the whole thing. But it's always a good time. This is the, I believe, 12th annual TR barbecue. And this will be the first for 2 of you guys, right?
Yep. It is my first rodeo. So
My first as well.
It's a great group of people. It's always a lot of fun, and we always have a lot of loot to give away. And this year is going to be one of the best on that front.
Is the potato gun going to be there this year?
Ned said he was coming, and he usually comes and brings the potato gun. He actually drives longer route to the barbecue so that he can get the potato gun. He lives in like Vermont, I think, and he could drive through Canada and back, and it would be faster. But then he would have to cross the border twice with the potato gun and potato cannon, and like that doesn't work. Like that's not going to work. So he drives a longer route just to be able to bring that thing. And then we just launch stuff. He launches stuff into the lake, which is fun to see and a little intimidating when you see how far out into the water he can launch a potato with that thing.
That's dedication.
Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't heard. Maybe we have to check in the thread. I'm not sure if Ned has stated his intention to bring the gun this year or not, but I think so. So, yeah, it's something to see. So you guys will enjoy that.
I am looking forward to it. So
somebody asked me when I told them about the barbecue, he says, is it a real barbecue or just hot dogs and hamburgers?
It is real smoked ribs, barbecued smoked ribs, slow cooked.
That sounds delicious.
So there, you will see pictures of a big grill. That's used just to get a finish on the ribs after they've been slow cooked. And then there are some hamburgers and stuff for people who don't know any better. But it's a real barbecue, and it's really good. And Z Girl, who cooks the ribs, is doing that this year, but she also always wins the cornhole tournament. And she has already stated that she will not be competing as a potential winner in the tournament. She may play the top person at the end just to establish like pecking order, but who gets the prize, she has said that she's not going to take it this year, even if she were to win. So the first place prize is up for grabs, and it could go to anybody. And so I've only played cornhole at the barbecue, but this will be like my 5th or 6th barbecue, so I keep getting better with my once a year practice. I don't think I'm ready to take the win yet, though. So, but if you're any good at that, or have any chance of being good at that, and you can practice a little beforehand, then definitely come to the barbecue, because you could walk away with one of these GTX 980 Tis, that's almost a $700 graphics card. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's worth winning if you can do it.
Sweet.
So Ben, you wrote a piece about vulnerability in older Intel CPUs. Do you want to tell us about that?
Sure. Are we ready to move on from the barbecue?
Yeah, I think we are.
Okay.
I think we're ready to dive into our relatively short agenda tonight. So
well, great. Let's take a look at it. Yeah. Prior to the Sandy Bridge generation, there was, and I'm going to try to keep this short because it's not interesting to talk about as much as it is to read about. But prior to the Sandy Bridge generation, there were some vulnerabilities in the BIOS that basically some really low-level stuff could be remapped into user-accessible memory. That memory could be corrupted, and then basically they could do an attacker could do just about anything, including flash another BIOS or brick the system entirely.
It's reassuring.
Yeah.
So how long did people know about this while we were all using computers based on pre-Sandy Bridge CPUs?
Well, I don't know that it was all that long. The paper was just published at Black Hat in August. And the people involved informed Intel, before it happened. So, but whether or not it was discovered before 2011, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
the good news is Sandy Bridge was such a big jump in performance that I think a lot of people ditched those older Core systems, Core 2 and Nehalem systems.
So how does this affect the system? Like, what do you have to do to get it? Like,
it's not. Well, I want to interject. I want to say this isn't really like malware or BIOS. Like, it's really, really deep in the processor. I believe you have to. Do you have to have physical access to the system to do this?
Well, you've got to corrupt it in some other way. You've got to have already taken advantage of something else and convinced the user to run something as an administrator to get started. So it's, the system has already been compromised before this ever happens.
Right.
Okay.
So
it was widespread because it affects all Intel pre-Sandy Bridge CPUs going back a long way.
Many of them, yeah. So I guess there's like a compatibility feature with this one component in the chip that it moves this memory map around, and it overlaps like this privileged memory that's like in a higher privileged ring of the processor. The rings are like the security levels of the chip. So apparently, if you exploit it in just the right way, you can get like this really stealthy malware, because like the operating system is in a different ring that can't access this ring, this higher privileged ring.
Right.
And so like if you can get malware code to reside in this higher privileged ring, like there's just no way to detect it, and it has full control over the system.
Which stinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot. I think there's been a lot more security news that's been like headline worthy lately.
Yes.
Which it's really, I think you guys can attest. It's not actually fun to write about.
No.
But it's becoming more.
Oh no, it's
as time
fascinating.
goes on.
It's fascinating because like it just the creativity. Like how would you? The fact that the people who exploit these things come up with these at all is just like hugely creative.
Like that Rowhammer attack, for instance.
Yeah, well, or just
banging on
even
your
this.
VRAM.
Like,
Yeah.
who would have thought that this one software compatibility feature in Intel CPUs could be used to take over the entire system? Like, it's really, really interesting to me. So
It is, but at the same time, it's like you just lay your head down on your desk again because it's just something else, The likelihood of it happening to you or me is probably really small.
Sure.
I'm sure there are targets, much more valuable than myself. But it's just something else,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Like
always
Gabe Newell.
something more.
Yeah. Gabe Newell got hacked, right? I mean, people like that, bigger targets. So it feels like that you just can't be sure that your system is secure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like the idiom is, your system is already compromised. Operate from that assumption.
Right. So
Or something.
Don't do anything. I don't.
Yeah. Throw it out a window.
Don't do anything important. Lead a frivolous life. That's the important thing here, is just to keep yourself out of trouble. But okay, let's talk about something that is a follow-up from last week's broadcast live stream, which, by the way, thanks to David Cantor again for doing that. We had a good time. Guys, thanks for coming on early this week and for bowing out last week so we could just clear the tables for me and David to talk Skylake, which is fun. And the only thing about Skylake that is kind of really frustrating now, and actually the Broadwell that we talked about too, is you can't find them to buy them. So if you got excited reading the review, listening to the podcast, I don't know, what do you do? So Jeff, we talked to Intel about this, and what did they say?
Right. Yeah. So, like Skylake and Broadwell are, the Broadwell chips are hard to get, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so in like Z170 motherboards for Skylake CPUs, those appear to be common, but like the chips themselves are not on Newegg yet. So we just reached out to Intel and said, hey, what's up? And they told us that there are short-term supply limitations in North and Latin America for the Skylake chips, and they expect like tight supply for the Broadwell CPUs like through the rest of the third quarter of the year. But the Skylake situation is supposed to resolve soon, they say.
So they said tight supply for Broadwell through the rest of Q3.
Yes.
Really?
They say
email.
well, they said it'll be the exact words were it'll become more widely available as Q3 progresses.
Okay, that doesn't sound like that will not be available in Q3.
Yeah.
That's just a vague statement of it's going to be more available.
Sure.
Oh. Okay. I thought I was learning something. I think you said it wrong.
Yeah, I took a little bit more out of that than probably was warranted.
Okay,
but...
this is like one of our news editing sessions right here going
Yes.
live. Somebody says to usually it's Jeff saying it to somebody else. Like, it doesn't mean, those words don't mean that. Like, you're taking too much from it. So this is what we do, and then we yell at each other about this. This only means that much. But yeah, they were pretty vague, and they just said that there's not enough, and we're trying to make more, right?
Right.
They've been shipping 14 nanometer like Core M and Core i5x7 mobile chips for a while. Skylake is new architecture, but it's still the same process tech basically as Broadwell. The Broadwell thing is new-ish, the quad core with the DRAM one, but I mean, none of this seems like it should be hard for Intel in the long run, given that they've made a lot of 14 nanometer chips and shipped them already. I've heard some people, I think maybe there were even people posting in the comments or in social media saying things about how the Broadwells will never be widely available to enthusiasts and stuff like that. I have no indication that that is true. And I think we have basically Intel making a statement here saying they're coming, you'll be able to buy them, but it's just a short-term thing that they're not yet available. So, Intel pushed a little bit to launch Skylake on the 5th of August when they did. The 15th or 18th at basically next week at IDF is when they're going to do their formal announcement of like the architecture details and things like that. And then they'll launch the whole Skylake lineup with the mobile chips and stuff like that later in the quarter. So it's quite possible that they just don't have a lot of quantities of these things built up yet because they pulled that launch ahead. Mm-hmm. I do think that we'll see them, and my hope is, I mean, like I said, I have no indication that Broadwell won't be, the 5775C won't be available widely as well. And that one's the one that's interesting for a lot of people because you can drop it into Z97 and get a huge gaming performance increase with a discrete GPU with that L4 cache. So, geez, yeah, let's hope that's what happens. And if there's a change or if anything that Intel is, like, the impression they've given us is wrong, I will try to find out next week at the Intel Developer Forum. I'll just ask some questions again just to clarify. But I'm fairly confident all of this stuff is coming to socketed systems, to Newegg, to places like that in North America as soon as they can make it happen.
Last week you talked so much about what that cache does for Broadwell, 128 meg cache.
Yeah.
You talked about how you want to see it on Skylake. Do we know if it's going to be on Skylake?
That's another thing to ask at IDF. And I think the problem with that is if they're probably announcing architectural details at IDF, but they're not necessarily announcing products yet. And so I don't know whether they'll give me an answer to that question, but I will definitely ask at IDF whether there will be a Skylake with Iris Pro graphics with an EDRAM cache and whether they'll make a socketed version of it for the desktop. The Broadwell is this magical unicorn, the fact that it even exists, because in Haswell they didn't build a desktop version of that chip, of that configuration. And they did it here, and it's still a mobile chip, it's still 65 watts, it's all that, but it's really great. So I hope they'll do it again, but honestly, I don't know.
We have a question in the comments that's asking Scott if you're going to be reviewing the corresponding i5 parts for Skylake and Broadwell in the near future.
Oh, I will ask for them. Here's the thing that's going to happen is Intel's supposed to launch an entire Skylake lineup. And my hope is that I'll be able to get like a few samples at different price points and do a sort of a roundup review comparing to Haswell's and older parts and AMD processors across the line. And, you know, the CPU test rigs are geared up with Windows 10. They're ready to go. When I get back from IDF, hopefully then I can do some of that. At least I should be able to get a 6600K to start that process. But I don't know. I still need to do some integrated graphics testing on the desktop Broadwell too. And I've got a A10 APU from AMD to test as well. So there's a bunch more stuff coming.
I'm seeing here that Steam released their July 2015 surveys, and if I'm reading this right, purportedly over half of gamers on Steam have only a 1 or 2 core processor.
Bruno wrote this story.
Yes, he did.
Jeff, you edited it, and you gave him some of that.
Yeah,
I don't think that means what you think it means, right?
I gave him a little bit of a hard time about this story. Yes, he thought the results were kind of like surprising, like the fact that people have kind of such relative. We're sitting atop we're sitting up in the rarefied air of enthusiast PC hardware. Looking down at everybody below us, and so he thinks this is kind of surprising that people have such like sort of modest systems, and my position is, well, duh, because a lot of people who play PC games are maybe more casual gamers. They're playing on less capable systems. But yeah, so the Steam hardware survey, they just go out and poll Steam users and say, what's in your PC? Can we collect this data? Okay, thanks. And so like this round, they did find that 51% have just 1 or 2 physical cores in their system. The other 50% or so, almost 50% are quad cores. They're mostly Intel chips. 75% of the systems are Intel chips. That's not terribly surprising. But what really stood out is 20% of those surveyed are using Intel integrated graphics for their systems. So like that really stood out because it's like we tend to think a gaming PC is not a thing without a discrete GPU like that. So for us, or at least for me, that's like a huge number. And I don't know.
I guess one of the other big numbers that was supposed to be surprising was this: 35% of gamers play at 1920 by 1080 resolution. But that's their monitor resolution. I'm not sure what it means play at. I did think that's a little weird that Bruno said play at. Does that mean what he thinks it means?
Yeah, probably not. But
okay, well then there we go. We have more editing to do. And then 62% have resolutions below 1080p. 42% use 1600 by 900 or lower.
I think what's
62%. That's 2/3.
Yeah. The most popular resolution after 1080p is 1366 by 768. I want to talk about these numbers because everybody points to these all the time as meaning things. And this is the classic, I don't think that means what you think it means, right? First of all, this is not one-to-one. Like, a survey participant is not a Steam user. I'm a Steam user, and I have like 6 or 7 machines that are registered on Steam. And I'm weird because I've got test systems and stuff, right? If I were less weird, I would still have my new laptop, my old laptop, and my desktop on Steam. And me, as a enthusiast gamer, I would outnumber myself with the low-end systems that I have on Steam versus the high-end systems that I have on Steam. I have a 2-to-1 ratio of integrated Intel to discrete graphics, right? Because my laptops have integrated Intel graphics. I would have a 2-to-1 ratio of dual-core to quad. Because my desktop is quad, my laptops are both dual-core. That's me, right? And that's just the reality of people owning multiple PCs and having them tied to Steam accounts and participating in the survey. I mean, this doesn't mean what you think it means if you look at it that way, right? One of my laptops that Steam is on is a 1366 by 768 display. Do I game on that? How many gaming hours are logged at that resolution? Like, not many, but if I get trapped in an airport terminal and I can play a little bit of some casual game, I'm going to have that ready. I'm going to have it installed and available just to like give me something to do, right? But I don't know. Ben, you look confused again.
Well, no, not confused. I was just gonna. You're making the point I was gonna make is that laptops outsell desktops by a large margin, right? And most of the laptops that you can buy are low-end integrated graphics, low-resolution displays. I think the hardware survey follows the PC market. Maybe it skews a little bit more toward enthusiasts, but by and large, I didn't think it was that big a deal.
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the more interesting things isn't a percentage, but it's a number. How many high-end PCs are there out there? How many game hours are being spent on those? How many people are there with Steam accounts who are playing like serious hardcore gaming? We know it's a big number. We know it's a really big number. And we know that to do that well, you got to have somewhat better hardware. And some of it, sometimes you don't. Dota 2, LOL, doesn't require that, right? But and that's the other thing. It's also just Steam. There's an entire like Blizzard ecosystem, EA ecosystem, LOL, and a bunch of other free-to-play games that are not on Steam, right? And what those guys are doing is an interesting question too, that this doesn't shed any light on at all. So I don't know. I think people get worked up over this. There are a lot of comments on it.
Yes.
And I just don't think it means. I don't know. I was talking to somebody from a major chip maker in the PC space, and they were telling me that their high-end chip was one of their best sellers. And this is an expensive product, but right now it's just really hot. And you can imagine there's some nice new high-end chips out from all the major chip makers, so you can guess about who it is, and it could be any of them. But the reality is those are super high-margin chips. You make a lot of money every time you sell one of those. You know, if the chip costs $400, it probably costs, you know, a fraction of that to make. You look at the margins on those high-end parts, and they're incredibly high. And that's where a lot of the money in this market is. And it's what drives development. It's what drives the growth. It's what drives, you know, all of the R&D that these folks do. And it pays for things getting better all the time like they always are. So, like, we know the PC market is in a good place for high-end enthusiast hardware. And I don't think you need to look at a Steam survey and start crying over the fact that the larger world includes a lot of cheap hardware too.
The more the merrier, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and I've got a ton of cheap hardware, and a ton of older hardware, and it sticks around, and it's still got Steam on it because maybe we want to play Unreal Tournament. You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to get.
No, good rant.
Note to Bruno: take down this post.
No, it's a great thing to post about. It's a great discussion fodder, right? I mean, sure, it is. It just, but people getting upset about it, it doesn't make sense. I do. What do you guys think about this, though? I think there are a lot of people. I don't know. This is hard to tell. You can't tell from this data. There seems like there are a lot of people out there though who buy 1080p monitors and then go and buy like graphics cards that cost $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 and attach them to their 1080p displays. That seems like a thing. There was somebody in the comments today saying, well, when a monitor costs more than the graphics card you need to drive it, that's no good. Like there's supposed to be some rule about how your monitor and graphics card cost the same.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I mean, the monitor lasts multiple generations of graphics cards.
I kind of went that way, though. Like when I bought my monitor and I bought my card, and it was like, well, it seems about right. But it just happened to work out that way, too.
I have to say one of the best things right now in PC gaming is go get yourself one of those 27-inch displays with its 2560 by 1440 IPS high refresh, variable refresh. They're awesome. They're going to cost you money. They're going to cost real money. But if your graphics card is fairly recent and works with variable refresh or high refresh even, like, just go see what that will do for you. You'll be happy with it. And it's the best upgrade around right now. And geez, I mean, I don't know. People resist it though. When I do monitor reviews and I say, you know, you really should consider upgrading. There are people who get mad in the comments and are like, no, 1080p, like it's mine. Like this is what I'm gonna buy, and I'm gonna spend all that money on that, and then they're gonna buy like a GTX 980 Ti to run their 1080p display. Like, no, don't. Like, no. Like a $200 graphics card is all you need for 1080p, maybe more. And I know you can find like cases where that's not quite true, but you know, you have to work at it, and you can tune a game to run well on a mid-range GPU.
I mean, my monitor is 8 years old, and it still works fine, and I will probably keep it until it does not work anymore. So
is yours 1080p?
It's a 1920 by 1200. It's a Dell 2407 WFP. Yeah, so it was hot stuff back in the day, but
it's time, dude.
Probably.
You know what people
see?
need?
Oh man, don't get me started, because it's like all these. You have to balance. I've been thinking about it.
No,
and you have to balance.
No, it's time.
Yeah.
You know what people need is they need to spend some time in front of one of these new high refresh IPS panels for a little while. It doesn't take much. I wish that I wasn't. If I was driving to the barbecue this year instead of flying, I would bring some just for people to look at. Because once you've seen them, then you're like, oh yeah, right. Like, have to have that.
I get stuck on, can it be color corrected? Is it, what's the color depth? How good is it for still photos and stuff, as well as gaming? I don't know. It gets out of hand pretty quick. But.
Well, it doesn't. You know what gets out of hand pretty quick is you compare some monitor as old as yours to something new, and you look at like the black levels versus white levels, just the total contrast. Like, your monitor sucks, dude. Like they've gotten better. They figured this stuff out since then, right? I mean, it really has progressed. So, I'm sorry. My monitor kind of stinks too. It's an older 30-inch one, and I've got better monitors around me, and I'm probably going to upgrade my main system soon because I know it. I can tell. Once you've used one of the new ones, man, you don't want to look back at your old one. It stinks. So I shouldn't tell you all this. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's motivation.
Okay.
I need a push.
Okay. Anyway, let's talk about Windows 10 because last time I asked you guys if you'd upgraded, everybody's like, no. Have you upgraded now? Have you used it?
I upgraded yesterday, as a matter of fact.
So how'd it go?
Surprisingly well.
So
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
That would be bad, I think. But nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the interface, the UI?
I mean, it's nice. I like the fact that I got used to the Windows 8 start screen, and now that it's a menu again, it's weird. Mm-hmm. It's still something I'm adjusting to. Like, I don't like this big persistent search bar at the bottom with Cortana in it. I think that should be part of the start menu or something, but that only comes up when needed. But I mean, like, the task switching interface is a lot more like it is on Mac OS 10. When I like Mac OS 10's task switching a lot, so that's a welcome change. I mean,
they totally ripped off the dock with the little blue light thing. Like,
oh, well, yeah, kind of.
Kind of.
I mean, it's not 3D. It's not 3D, and it doesn't have the fancy floating effect.
No, they ripped off the iOS flat look, and then they ripped off the OS 10 indicator. They made an iOS version of the OS 10 dock.
Yeah.
Well, Apple made one of those too in Yosemite.
Oh, well, there you go. So, anyway, I don't know.
Overall, it's just Windows, man. It's not. They can't change it that much.
No, and personally, I even like the search bar thing right there, because that is like, if I need to do something, I feel like I can just type a little bit and I've got like absolutely everything right there. I like that it doesn't take over the whole screen like Windows 8's did. And I haven't really played with Cortana much. I don't think that's going to be a thing that I do, but just for like general use, that just the being able to type and very quickly see just everything that it's responding, that works well.
Yeah. I launched Steam with her tonight. That was my venture into Cortana. So
wow,
it works.
Can we talk to Cortana during the podcast? What would happen?
I don't want to find out.
That could be bad.
It's bad news. She's listening all the time because I accidentally turned that on and can't figure out how to turn it back off. And there are just boatloads of false positives where I'm talking to somebody else and she pops up and said, "Sorry, I didn't catch that."
Oh man.
Great.
Oh, you got to
figure that one out.
Yeah.
It happened in the about 10 minutes ago in the podcast too. I had to shut her down.
So you're running Windows 10 right now?
Yeah, I was like Lawrence in Office Space, two PCs at the same time. upgraded the one behind me and my personal machine, and it was a race to see which one could get done first. Like Jeff, nothing happened. It just pretty smooth sailing all the way.
How long ago did you install that?
Saturday, I think. Once I found out I could get at least a preview version of a couple apps I rely on, it was like, well, let's just dive in. It's ready. I might as well take it.
Uh-huh.
So, what about you, Luke?
Well, just today I started installing it on my laptop. I started it before my commute, and it took longer than I thought, and so I had to continue installing during my commute. It's a little wonky. Like, if I close the lid, what's going to happen? I don't know what to do. I didn't get a message saying something happened, but I did get a message saying you don't have enough storage space. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? I don't have any files in this computer. And I've got one of those laptops where it's basically a Chromebook with Windows. And so it has a 32 gig. I mean, you can't call it a hard drive because it's not. What do they call that?
Flash.
Slower flash?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, 32 gig flash, before Windows is installed. And I had no files, no TV shows, no pictures, no music, no media. And it didn't have enough memory to download the update for Windows 10 and install it.
No.
So I had to plug in a flash drive. And fortunately, it was like, okay, we can use that. So downloaded at least a portion of it, I guess, behind the scenes to the flash drive so I could do the update. And it's working now. I haven't gotten a chance to test it yet or do anything in it, but it's there. It looks different.
Yeah, I got a Asus tablet. It's like one of those like 9 or 10 inch Asus. I forget the name tablets. We reviewed it. I could pull up the review, but whatever. It's Clover Trail, and I was waiting for the Windows 10 upgrade on it. It seemed like a good target for that, and it's not got a lot of storage, but there's nothing on it. I don't do anything with it, and it came up with a notification and told me this device cannot run Windows 10 because there's no video driver, basically. And what it comes down to is Intel / Imagination Tech, because this is a Power VR graphics core on the Clover Trail. They have not yet provided a driver for Windows 10, and if they don't, then they'll never be able to upgrade, I guess. And I guess Intel originally wasn't going to do it, and now they're saying that a driver is coming. So maybe it just seems like that was a device that was sold like a couple of years ago with Windows 8 on it. It seems really weird to not have a driver for Windows 10 for it. I mean, that's a really short span of time to just give up on supporting it. But I don't know. Also, I've been watching on my laptop, which is an Asus UX305. It's a Core M, newer, nice. Love that laptop. And my upgrade's still not available. Like, they've been rolling them out gradually, and I don't know if like my laptop is one of those that like there's a driver issue of some kind that they're not 100% sure it's going to install right, and so it's going to be supported. Clearly, I mean, Core M, it's going to be supported, but I don't know. It's just not available. So I don't know. Have you got any systems like that where Microsoft is still holding back on letting you download it?
I've got a Haswell-based seller on PC in the basement that hasn't gotten it yet, but it's got an older graphics card. It's like a Radeon 5700 series. So I don't know if that's Intel or AMD or it's just at the back of the line.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of figured that by now you'd at least have been given a chance, to upgrade. If you wanted to, but I guess they're really being careful with it, or gradual with it in some cases.
So there is rhyme or reason to which computers get the ability to upgrade when?
They have said that they're delaying systems that have had problems with the upgrade, or their components that are known to have problems. So say that they did a batch of my laptop, the Asus UX305, and there was a problem. Something happened, right?
Yeah.
Then they would say, okay, we got telemetry on this. This is problematic. Let's look into it and try and fix it, and we'll wait before we do more. So I think they're doing something along those lines. So yeah, I mean, it's a smart approach. It's just that they don't tell you what's going on or why. They just tell you, hey, you can get Windows 10. just keep waiting for an indeterminate amount of time, no matter whether this is the one system you want most to have it on. So it's a little weird. Anyway, let's move. Ben, let's talk about your first big review for this.
Woohoo!
Let's move into this, because I am really glad you reviewed this for us, because I was supposed to do this, and there was no way that I could do this with Skylake and Radeon Fury and Desktop Broadwell and IDF coming up and everything else. But you have written a review of Nvidia Shield Android TV.
Yeah.
So what is this, like, monolithic thing from 2001: A Space Odyssey that you looked at here?
Well, it's a do everything box, right? It's Nvidia pushes it as a game console, as stream PC games to your TV, as a TV service box, to replace like an Apple TV or a Roku or whatever. And along with that, stream games over the internet from their grid service. It's meant to do everything. At least that was the goal.
Right. I don't think they stated it quite that way, because that would be a bad.
Yeah, probably not.
But they clearly want to be sort of your content aggregation center. That's kind of the Android TV mission. And then Nvidia's layering its stuff on top of that, which is mostly gaming related. Yeah,
and that's what was most interesting about it to me, as opposed to like an Nexus player or drawing a blank. I know there are at least one or two other Android TVs out there.
Right. And so this is it's good looking. How much does this thing cost?
The 16 gig configuration is $199, and they have a 500 gig configuration with a mechanical hard drive for $299.
And so when you say do everything, I guess the thing that probably is worth pointing out is this doesn't have a TV tuner or the ability to act as a DVR yet.
Right. Yeah, without any tuning, there's nothing to record.
And Nvidia has said, I think, kind of like the maybe some of the stuff they're going to do with the consoles. I think there's going to be like a network-based tuner that you can eventually get for this thing that will let you like record to a NAS and then stream back and play. But it's a little kludgy compared to a device with a tuner integrated into it. But other than that, I guess it's a pretty high-end piece of hardware for a little streaming box, right?
Yeah, the best ARM-based SoC that I know of in the Tegra X1 it's got the big little 8-core configuration with Cortex A57s and A53s, and it's got quite a bit of graphics horsepower, at least compared to other mobile solutions with the Maxwell-based GPU.
Yeah, and in fact, this is our first look at something with the Tegra X1 in it. And, the weird thing about these chips is that NVIDIA is not really selling them. They're selling them, I guess, in automotive markets, but they're not selling them into phones much. They're selling them into tablets some, but they're relatively high-end in terms of especially graphics power with the GeForce GPUs than most mobile SoCs. And in this case, that means, I guess it can run some nice games, right?
Well, that's it can. Whether or not those games are available has been a little bit of an issue, at least at launch and up through today. There's some stuff, but there are more games that are listed as coming soon that are really supposed to be, show off the capabilities of the system, like Borderlands, the pre-sequel, is one of those that's supposed to be coming soon. And when you open the Shield Hub, that's one of those things that just kind of taunts you. We know it's coming, but when? So far, some of the other games have been mostly ports of older titles. Some of Valve's stuff, like Half-Life 2 and the 2 episodes are available, and Portal. The first Portal is available, but it'd be nice to see them. They're announced, but I'd like to see some of those other things come out just to really see what it can do.
Yeah. So let's talk quickly about the rest of the hardware because we didn't really kind of cover that. This thing, I guess, lays flat, or there's a stand, and I guess this picture here is it in the stand. It's got the HDMI port in the back, 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, and then that's what, gigabit Ethernet as well, in case you want to go wired. And USB, it connects to what, like external storage that way?
External hard drives, and I did plug in. I don't think I actually wrote this down. I did plug an Xbox 360 wireless adapter into it, and I recognize that as an extra controller. Oh, so really? you're not limited to just Nvidia's controllers with it.
Okay. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and so this here's the stand, and then there's a remote, and this is a TV remote, and this thing doesn't ship with it?
No, neither one. And that was a real bummer, especially given the suggested prices on it. The remote seems like it'd be pretty cool, but for $50, I think I'm gonna pass. The stand is it's here or there. You know, I don't mind them leaving that out if it helps them hit that price point. Mine's just laying down and it's fine.
Yeah. Now I have to confess, I'm asking you questions, but I got one too. and mine, the Wi-Fi reception is poor when it's flat, and I think the stand helps with that. But
okay,
I don't know. That's unique. In fact, it doesn't help enough, honestly.
I'm not very far from the router. They're both on the same level of the house, and there's like one room separating the two, so it hasn't been an issue for me. I did have an issue prior to the last firmware update where it just wouldn't see my 5 gigahertz network, and so it would complain anytime I wanted to go like with grid or even streaming locally. It would complain a little bit because, you know, not the best network speeds that way.
Okay, so let's talk about the remote real quick because I spent some time with it, Ben. So it has a button on it. You can see it looks like a microphone. That's for Google Voice. And this thing actually has a mic in it, and so you can speak commands to Google Voice, and it will listen and then relay those wirelessly with RF to the box.
This is beyond just searching for content?
You can search for content mainly. That's mainly what the Google Voice stuff is for. But you can do a lot of like navigation and stuff. I mean, Google does a good job with that type of thing. So they built that into the Android TV interface. And then it has this area right here. Ben, this will make you want to buy it. This area right here is a touchpad, and as you slide up and down with your thumb, then it turns the volume up and down on the unit.
Oh, wow. That's handy.
So, and it's all metal except like just some little plastic bits here and there. The whole thing is metal, and it's got a little bit of heft to it. So it's a nicely designed remote. It's pretty small in the hand, and it's probably something to consider, but it's $50, and I can see why they ship just the gamepad with it. And this gamepad is the same one that we get from the Shield tablet. Have you played with the Shield tablet?
No.
Okay, well, same one, but I guess this does everything.
Yeah, it does all the navigation stuff through Android TV. It's got a microphone built in. It's also got the volume buttons that you were talking about with the remote. There are, as far as I can tell, there aren't any features that the remote can do that the controller can't. So it's nice that they at least bundle something with it. And it's nice that it's the controller because it's a pretty well built piece of hardware.
Yeah, it is. It's a nice controller. It's in some ways, a lot of ways on par with an Xbox 360 controller, I'd say, generally speaking. Although, as you mentioned, the two analog sticks are one of the two is in a different position than you might be used to with the Xbox controller. They move the D-pad up and move that down, which isn't bad actually when you're using it. It's just different. So, and it does. It's wireless, but you can plug a headset into it.
Yep.
And a mic, I guess, a headset with a mic, so you can do like gaming and yelling at people while you game.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I used it with one of those the Apple headphones with the microphone built in. And I guess I should confess, I don't really know that it used that microphone. It might have been using the microphone and the controller all along because I have no way of knowing. But the headphones at least worked. The inline volume controls didn't, but you have it right on the controller. So
right. So it's a nice controller, and it comes with that, which is, I think, a pretty big chunk of the. It says what, 60, I think,
yeah.
$60 controller. It's a big chunk of the price of the Shield Android TV to include that with it. But it's a nice inclusion because you're going to want that to play games.
For sure.
So walk us through. Okay, well, we got the Android TV interface here. This is just what, like couch based? Is it Android DE or is it kind of its own thing?
It's based off of what are the names of these things? Lollipop,
Yeah.
5.1, with its own custom interface. They call it the lean back launcher. So you get some suggestions along the top, and then below that you've just got a grid that you navigate with the controller to find your install games and apps. And then at the bottom you can get into the settings. The layout of the interface is really nice because it's directional left and right and up and down, so things are easy to get to. And like you mentioned before with the remote, also with the controller, you can talk to Google Voice, ask it questions. I had it check the weather. I had it look up TV shows. And then I didn't really know what else to do with it, so I kind of quit using it, but it works. And then you can, once you install stuff, then you can just launch it and get to your games and apps pretty easily.
Yeah, and my experience is that it's not bad. It's really simple. It's not as powerful as a touch Android interface, and it doesn't work with the same apps. So you got to get like custom Android TV apps.
Yeah, the Google Play Store is built in, but you're only going to find stuff that has been approved, I guess, for the service. Some apps that exist on Android, some apps that would be really nice that exist on Android aren't on Android TV because it's left out of like content provider apps and certain network TV apps, stuff that I could watch on an Android tablet. I can't bring up on the Android TV yet.
Yeah, and we should talk about this. I guess we should probably move on to talk about this. The thing about it is, the thing about this device or any device of this type is what services are available and what services aren't available. This gets a little bit weird, right? Because I got a home theater PC and I use like a little bit of everything. Some iTunes, some Amazon, some Netflix, some Google Play, some whatever I can find on the web sometimes to watch stuff. YouTube, I mean, everything. And this has clearly the Google stuff, Play and YouTube. And then I guess there's a Netflix app that's built in. And then beyond that, it starts to get a little hairy, right?
It does. Like I said, some apps just aren't available on Android TV where they're available on other Android platforms. Some things like Amazon stuff is kept off entirely. So if you want to watch like Prime Video, well, they want you to buy their hardware, so they'll segment it. That's kind of rude.
Same with Apple.
Yep. Same thing with Apple. If you want to get to your iTunes stuff, you're looking at an Apple TV, and that's it.
And so at the end of the day, you can stream with this. And you
Yes.
can stream Hulu, Netflix, eventually HBO now, I guess. They announced it, but it's not out.
Right.
But there's a lot. What you said, Dish Anywhere, DirecTV, Infinity TV are all not available too?
Right. Yeah, so if you are paying for cable or satellite and they offer streaming services, you're not going to get them on an Android TV yet. Yet, anyway.
Right. And so hopefully some of this resolves itself. And this is Google's thing as much as it is Nvidia's thing.
It is. I can't really lay this on Nvidia. They built something with Google's platform, and these same apps are, not available on a Nexus player, which is, if it's not going to be on there, then where will it be?
Yeah. So let's talk about the Nvidia piece of it, which is interesting because they are touting what they have as the Netflix for games.
Yeah.
And so I guess there are three ways to get games on this thing. Let's just start with the obvious, which is what we already talked about, which is I guess they're Android games, and some of them are Nvidia specials.
Right. Nvidia has worked with game developers to port some games, and like we went over, there's some of Valve's library, Doom 3, Borderlands 2, and then the pre-sequel is going to come. So there's some stuff, and I think over time that will grow because Nvidia is really attractive to game developers.
I hope. It seems like they got all their PC buddies to port stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all like first-person shooters and stuff that's not real great with a console and a controller. I wish... I mean, I think we want to see some of those traditional console genres, the things that like Nintendo's really good at, brought into the living room on this device to sell it, right?
Yeah.
But they do have a couple other ways to get games. So one of them is this Grid thing. This is the Netflix for games. So what is Nvidia Grid?
Grid is a stream over the internet service. They have their cloud-based gaming stuff somewhere that you connect to their servers, and it streams video from their servers to the Shield, and then you use your controller to play whatever they've got on the service. There are about 50 games or so. Again, it's mostly kind of older titles, but you'll find something to play, I'm sure.
And this is streaming over the internet, right?
Right.
So how well does it work? I mean, is image quality okay? What about input lag, that kind of thing?
I've probably got a little faster internet connection than most people. I have a 100 megabit fiber from a local provider. The quality of the stream is really good. Lag is there, it's just going over the internet. That act alone is going to introduce some sort of input latency. But it's not terrible. You can get used to it in most games. The stream itself is really good, really solid for me. It can do 1080p at 60 frames per second, and when I forced those connections, my internet connection handled it fine. The actual quality of the games, though, they've turned it down a little bit in order to, I guess, accommodate multiple Grid users connecting to the same cluster. GPU resources are probably at least a little bit limited.
Yeah.
So they've dialed back details, and we've got a comparison shot from Batman Arkham Asylum in the review.
Yeah, and that comparison wasn't awesome in favor of the Grid, because it just looks like they've dialed down the texture quality and image quality quite a bit in the game.
They did, and that's an old game, so relatively speaking, anyway.
I mean, and it's possible that that's a video streaming thing to some extent, but it looks like, based on the screenshot here, that there's nice sharp text overlaid over it.
Yep.
It's just that the underlying textures, the quality has been turned down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it looks like they are saving GPU power on their cluster. And that's, but I mean, would you play games this way as a thing that you would do? Do you see this as like something that you would subscribe to a service like this, or would it have to get better?
There are a couple of ways that it would have to get better. One is a game selection. The games themselves are just not current. Like, Witcher 3 just came out in May. Witcher 2 is available on Grid. So they do have some family-friendly stuff. There are a bunch of the Lego adventure games, like Lego Star Wars and Lego Batman and the Lego Movie, and that's actually been fun to play with my kid. That's what I did with the Xbox controllers. I gave her a second controller, and she stabs me with her lightsaber and thinks it's fun. So for that by itself, that's pretty cool. But I don't see myself subscribing to it. Right now it's a free service they offer as a beta.
Right. Yeah, I hope it gets better. I played with it before it was like on the original Shield portable and on the Shield tablet. And I've had trouble with it on the Shield console, weirdly enough. And I think some of it's just the Shield console's Wi-Fi reception in my house. And my router is too far basically from the where I had the TV in the living room. So I got to fix that, I guess. But yeah, I want it to be good enough that like those games that are on there, if you want to play one, it's not a bad way to do it. But I have not found it to be good enough yet. And it depends on the genre in some cases, like racing games.
Yeah, drive into the wall.
Yeah, it's just no good, right? I'm just not fast enough for that. But other types of games maybe so. So there's one other way to play games on this, which is also streaming, but it's local streaming, right?
Yeah.
So what happens there?
That's a better experience than Grid. You know, first of all, you have to have a PC with a Kepler or Maxwell based GeForce in it because it's their stuff, and that's fine. I have a 970, and so that's fine. And then it streams over Wi-Fi from the PC to the console, and it does. In my case, it's wired from the PC to my router, and then from my router, Wi-Fi to the console. And there is still some really perceptible input latency. I tried to play. Well, I played some games. I played like Grand Theft Auto 5. Worked pretty well once I got used to it. I still run over pedestrians, but I think I'd do that on the PC anyway.
For fun, right?
Yeah, just for fun, right?
It's a lifestyle choice.
Right. And then I used it for comparison with like Batman and stuff. Controller games are fine. I would never ever want to play a Twitch shooter, something that requires fast reactions and fine mouse movements. I tried to play Diablo 3 and StarCraft 2, and those both went really poorly. I just could not get used to a little bit of input latency when I'm used to it being instantaneous on the PC.
Yeah. Well, I do think that's a better experience, and I've had some good experiences with that on, like you said, on the Shield tablet. I just can't seem to get the console connected to my Wi-Fi as well, but it's better than going over the internet. Did you run into some issues with like, okay, this game doesn't completely support just a touchpad or any of that?
Yeah, Arkham Asylum was the first one that I ran into that way. I ended up buying on Amazon a little Bluetooth keyboard with a touchpad because I didn't know. I guess I can confess this too. I had no idea that the controller actually had a little touchpad built in. So I bought one, and I had to use it just to get past, that initial splash screen where you can either go into the options or start the game. I had to use that in order to dismiss the splash and get into the game.
Yeah, it's not perfect because PC games are not made to be used just with a game controller.
Right.
And they've tried to help that along with their GeForce experience and the games they validate and the ones they don't and all that, but it's still not 100%. And sometimes I'll start a stream and something goes wrong. I have to run down to my PC and close out the game and start it over again. And it's not seamless yet.
Yeah, I only had to do that maybe 2 or 3 times. And it was always with GTA 5. Like some other process would go crazy for whatever reason. And it would just never... You'd like start the game and you'd tell it to start the story mode and it would just load for all eternity and never get started.
Well, it is... it's Nvidia's been working on this stuff for a while, and they seem to be committed to it long term. I think there's potential there, but what's your take on the thing overall? Like, who does this make sense for, and who doesn't it make sense for?
It doesn't make sense for maybe TR's target audience of PC enthusiasts. Mm-hmm. What it has really made me want to do is build an HTPC. Mm-hmm. So that's probably what I'll end up doing. But it might make sense for people who want to stream like really mainstream stuff, because Netflix and Hulu are supported, and that might be all somebody uses. So, but they also want to play some games, and maybe they do have a nice PC with a GeForce graphics card that they would like to stream like casual stuff from time to time. It makes sense for people who want to get away from their computer without spending a whole $350 for an Xbox or $400 for a PS4.
Right. Yeah, I have to say, I've got a home theater PC, and I got this thing to review, ostensibly me. I was going to do it, not you. And I plugged it into the TV in the living room, and I told my family, who uses the home theater PC a lot in different ways, gaming and all sorts of stuff. I said, here it is. Check this out. This is what it can do. Like, you know, let's like do stuff with it. And like that did not happen at all. Like it just because, and there are several reasons. One of them was, you know, I've got a Harmony remote and it all integrates and you can switch inputs and stuff. But I have audio on a separate stereo amp and receiver, and there's no audio output on this other than the HDMI port. So then I'm playing tinny audio through the TV, and so it was no good for that scenario because there's not a way to get the sound out of it otherwise. I would have had to have a different config than what I've got, which is, you know, it's not a problem for everybody, but it was for me. And then, you know, asking them to stream games when we can run them locally on the home theater PC and Steam with big picture mode, like, no.
That's kind of rude, isn't it?
Yeah, no. Like, it's just not nearly as good an experience. And we've been playing things like Rocket League and Project Cars and stuff like that. That is, they're fast. You need to control quickly and all that. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think this is an interesting project, and I hope that Nvidia continues it. But they've got some ground to cover, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, they do, and Google does too. I think more ground needs to be covered by Google in terms of working with developers to bring a full slate of streaming options. That's a really big hole. They want you to skip the Apple TV when, at least in my case, you really can't.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, the other thing is it's hard to sell this, like, upmarket thing and compete with, heck, it's hard to compete with $35 Chromecast that if you have a phone or tablet available is going to do everything that streaming wise that you might want to do. I mean, I can stream almost everything off of an iPhone with a Chromecast or an Apple TV or whatever, the HDMI cable. It has all the services and stuff, right? So
right.
How do you justify asking more for this? And gaming, I think, is the answer, but they need to get better on the selection and stuff. So, yeah. It's neat, though. I mean, it's a neat box, and you could see NVIDIA took a long time to get to this because they did the portable, then they did the tablet, and then finally we have this. I guess because they were waiting on Android TV, I think.
Yeah. I was one of those. It's like, why did you make this little handheld console, you know, 2004 called, they want their Game Boy back, you know, just why are we doing this? And now I see why, because now here we are, you know, 2 years later or so, and the software just still hasn't quite matured yet.
Right.
Is it worth comparing and contrasting this to the Amazon Fire TV stick?
Yeah, here's the comparison. If you want Amazon, get Amazon. If you don't
do you
want
have
Amazon,
one? Because I do. I can talk about it a little bit if you want.
well, yeah, sure. I guess dive in.
All right. Well, I don't have the full Amazon Fire TV, just the TV stick. And the TV stick is a little junior guy that looks like a Chromecast. You just plug into the back of your TV, or in my case, the back of my receiver. And the remote that comes with it, it's like you don't have to point it anywhere. It's not directional. It just works. The little wheel to control is really nifty. And so I found myself really loving this tiny little remote just to navigate around the screen and saying, yes, play this in Netflix. No, don't play that in Netflix. Yes, rate this up on Netflix. I just use it as a Netflixing tool. And so it does have other apps outside of Netflix and Amazon Prime Video, but they suck. I mean, you can't do anything. You can't, I don't know. So I'm looking at the remote here on the Shield that you're talking about here, and I'm seeing that it just looks like the same remotes could be really easy to use, but built with high quality materials. And I see the little microphone built in. Now the Fire TV stick does not come with a microphone. You have to upgrade to a fancier controller for $50 for that. But you can use the one built into your cell phone. So I put the app on my phone and I said, search for this. And so I was in Netflix searching for something that I know is in Netflix. And the voice recognition was really good. And it took me outside of the Netflix app to Amazon to say, well, yeah, you can't watch it for free, but here we're going to sell it to you. And so they take you away from the content you have access to the content you don't, and ask money for it. And so the whole search function, even though it's good, all it does is direct you back to things you need to buy, which I found really irritating, and now I don't use it at all.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, it's really a pain to type in what you're looking for if you're not just going to scroll for what you want to see. And as I said, the voice searcher doesn't help for that at all. And so I think it's a really nifty device for watching Netflix movies and TV shows. But as you said, it obviously doesn't do games, and everything this does do games. You can't do game streaming locally or otherwise. So I think it's a compelling option for the price.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I'd want to pay hundreds of dollars for this when I could have that for $40 instead.
Yeah, it comes down to this for the Shield. It comes down to gaming. They have to sell it on gaming. If they don't have something compelling for you along those lines, they probably aren't going to convince you to spend the extra. Right? It is slick. It is pretty looking. The integration is good. The hardware is nice. The controllers and stuff. But that's going to be the key. And the thing that they're not going to do, as far as I can tell, is cut any deals beyond what Google does for its Android TV platform for media streaming. Right? It's all about gaming. So we'll see what happens there. Let's move on though, because we actually do have a couple more things to talk about. I don't know if we're even going to get them in because it's late, and I know we're starting to wilt. Jeff, you're going to get tired.
Yeah.
But you reviewed a mouse, two mice.
I did.
Tell us about these mice real quick.
Okay, so
this is the MX Master and the MX Anywhere 2 from Logitech.
Yeah. Okay, so Logitech. We usually think about Logitech in terms of their gaming peripherals. I have a Logitech gaming mouse that I like, but they also make, I guess, and this is a point of contention. We'll get into it in a second. Yeah. They also make, I guess, productivity mice, and so like the MX Master is supposed to be like the latest in their high-end productivity mice series, the top of the line thing. The MX Anywhere 2 is a smaller mobile mouse, something you'd slip into a laptop bag or briefcase or something. So to that end, to be high-end productivity mice, the MX Master has like this fancy mode switching, automatic mode switch. Okay, I completely messed that up. Okay,
automatic mode switching.
Automatic mode switching scroll wheel.
Slow mitching.
But anyway, so what this thing does is it senses.
What?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, it switches the mode of the scroll wheel. It switches between clicking and free scrolling depending on how hard you flick it, which is really neat. And now I kind of want that on every other mouse I own because it's super useful to just flick down a page and then switch back to the clicky mode when you need it. It's also got this scroll wheel under your thumb for horizontal scrolling, which is really neat. I think that's a unique feature. But like that's about it. I mean, the other thing that does that's kind of neat is you can store 3 different profiles on it for wireless connections, like between Bluetooth or Logitech's own little USB dongle thingy. So that works really well. It's really useful if you have like multiple computers, like a laptop and a desktop. I guess that's the envisioned purpose. But what this doesn't have compared to like dedicated gaming mice is like support for extensive macros or like on the fly DPI switching or stuff like that. And you kind of miss that. And like the DPI adjustment range is more limited. You can only adjust these mice between like 400 to 1600 DPI. And the sensor is the thing that we really didn't like about these mice, despite, the many good things about them. Like, using dedicated gaming mice, I guess I've gotten used to like being able to set up at least imperceptible input acceleration, which is to say, you know, the cursor moves more than you intended it to or less than you intended it to, I guess, in an effort to enhance the accuracy of the mouse. So a lot of people don't want that in a gaming mouse for obvious reasons. Like if you can't develop muscle memory, you can't do twitch shooting and stuff. So when I tested these, like I play Counter-Strike with friends, and you know I fired up Counter-Strike to give this a shot. They're not that, they don't provide that one-to-one input. Like they shoot past the target and stuff, and you have to compensate by wiggling the cursor around, and you can adapt to that, but it's not pleasant, and it takes some getting. You have to unlearn that reflex when you switch back to a dedicated gaming mouse. So
let's talk about the sensor for a minute. It's called Logitech Dark Field.
Field.
They're going to be the new Star Wars movie, right?
What the heck is Dark Field? Is it just marketing, or do we know?
Well, okay, so the sensor in these is supposed to be able to track on any surface that you might want to use the mouse on. So Logitech says you can use it on glass. You can use it, like, I guess glass is hard to track on for traditional mice. But you can use it on glass. You can use it on like a leather couch. You can use it on suede surfaces. So that does work really well. I did try a number of surfaces with it, but the impression I get is that there's a lot of internal processing that has to happen to make that work, and then the fact that it's wireless, I don't know if they just integrated acceleration as a compensation for that, or it's just something they think users expect in a mouse like this. But
yeah, that's the weird thing about this, right? I mean, that's the weird thing about this. Mouse acceleration, let's just explain this very quickly. Mice respond in linear fashion. You go X distance across the desk, and
I wouldn't say they usually do, but they can be set up to.
They're supposed to. And acceleration may be the default for a lot of people now, but that's a response where the faster you move the mouse, the further it goes during that span of time. That's acceleration. And so a quick flick of the mouse can take you way across the desktop in the same distance as a slow arc of the mouse from A to B, where it would only the slower arc would only take you a shorter distance across the desktop. It can be nice. Some people like it, but for gaming, generally speaking, I think most folks want to turn acceleration off. I do. I there may be some people who like it on. I don't know what's wrong with those people, but I know they exist. But it's a software choice, right? And it's a choice that you can make. And in this case, I don't think I've ever seen a mouse that has native acceleration built in that cannot be turned off in Windows. But that's what we apparently are seeing here. Like basically, that's what you experience when you play games.
That's what I think I'm experiencing when I play games.
And so you asked Logitech about it.
Yeah, we said, we asked them, hey, we experienced this in game. This was what happened in games with this mouse. Can you maybe shed some insight on whether there's internal acceleration happening? And they were kind of opaque about it. They said the dark field sensor is not suitable for gaming. This mouse is not optimized for gaming. Use one of our dedicated gaming mice for gaming.
And the MX Master costs how much?
It's $100.
And you can't play it with games.
Well, you can play them. Whether you can play them to your taste or not. I mean, that's the question that I guess a lot of people will have to cope with. I mean, I don't know, because as a reviewer, I got really deep into this whole acceleration deal. Where it comes into the signal processing chain. I don't know that a lot of people think about this, and a lot of people might not turn off the enhanced pointer precision in Windows or something, so they may not notice, but we certainly do. So
I've never seen a mouse that wasn't if it's competent as a pointing device, it's okay for gaming. generally speaking. Even the cheap ones. If you move your mouse super fast and it's a cheap sensor, then you get a zigzag and it doesn't work right. And there are things like that. But I don't know if I've ever seen a mouse that just is like, no, you're always getting accelerated. Like, that's weird. And the fact that it comes in a $100 product and doesn't have an adjustment, I don't know. And you did say you were able to compensate for it, like after you played for a while, you kind of got used to it.
It's something. It's something you develop a reflex for. Like you see, I guess, like this is all happening in the space of milliseconds, probably. So I don't want to like put too much on this, but you do get the sense that it's going too far. I have to bring it back. And, I didn't publish this in the review because it was hard to summarize the numbers in a way that made sense. But I played like the Counter-Strike Counter-Strike Global Offensive has this tutorial mode where you run through a timed course. I did that like dozens of times with like different mice just to see if there was a difference in my performance. And ultimately it didn't make that much of a difference. But like the lowest times I was able to set were with the dedicated gaming mice. So, even with that kind of compensation, it seems like it's hurting your performance somehow.
Well, and so it's nice shape. Especially the Master. It's got some nice features, but you just have to know going into it, I guess, that you're getting acceleration that you can't turn off.
Yeah, it's and Logitech, thinks it's not a product optimized for gaming, which is a little weird. So,
I mean, I have a hard time. Like gaming mice are mice with like RGB LEDs on them. But they're still just mice. like the sensors aren't that special. They're not that pricey or different.
Mouse makers would probably like to have a word with you about that.
Oh, they're welcome to have some words. We'll talk as long as they want. But if they want to come on the podcast and talk about the exact technical merits of their sensors, I don't. Well, they aren't going to want to when they're done.
Scott's gonna beat him up.
Oh man, I mean, come on.
I will too. Probably.
I just anyway. All right. Well, so that's MX Master, and then the companion that we didn't give enough time to, which is the MX Anywhere 2.
The problem with the MX Anywhere 2 is that it's just it loses a lot of features for the size. Like it doesn't have any of the fancy things in the Master, aside from like the 3 onboard profiles. And it has the same kind of exterior finish. I mean, it's still a nice mouse, but I mean, it's $80. Like Logitech makes similar mice without like the pairing profiles for less that are probably like 90% as good. And so I don't know. Unless you really like the styling, I think it's hard to justify. But
Okay, well let's move on. We probably, guys, we should probably wrap this up soon because we started late and it's been a long week and
Scott, we can't wrap it up yet. I need to know how much video memory is enough.
I don't know that you do. we have some questions from the chat. Maybe we should talk about those.
We can do that. All right. I've got a question here from Duct Tape Dude. He says, "Who lays more credible claims of 40% improvements, AMD or Qualcomm?"
Okay, moving on. Do we have any other questions? No, we don't really have any other questions from the chat. All right, let's talk about video memory. But we'll do it. We'll do it briefly. So, I between this is kind of something that I wrote up and we published today that happened between like my R9 Fury review and my roundup review of GeForce GTX 980 Ti cards, because in the wake of the Fury review, one of the unanswered questions was, what about the fact that the Fury and Fury X only have 4 gigs of memory? Newer, like higher end cards that compete with have 6 to 8 to 12 gigabytes. And even AMD, when they refreshed the Hawaii chip and made the R9 390 and 390X, made everything 8 gigs. But because of the limitations of HBM, the high bandwidth memory in the Furies, which is very high bandwidth, like really fast, but it just, the capacity is 4 gigs. That's all you're going to get. And so the question is, when and where is that a problem? Like, how much of a problem is it? And so what I did to test that was I picked out one game that had some really unique attributes, Shadow of Mordor. It's got a really big memory footprint and a reputation for that. It has the ability to benchmark in a quick, repeatable fashion with just a standard FPS-based benchmark that you can run really easily. And then it has the ability to choose resolutions that are higher than your display's resolution, that it will downsample to your display resolution. So I was able to test at 2560 by 1440, which is kind of the high-end gaming standard, I guess you'd say. 4K, 3840 by 2160 is technically 4K resolution, and then two higher resolutions, 5760 by 3240 and 7680 by 4320. The last of which is 33 freaking megapixels, which is more than if you had a triple 4K display array. That would be 24 megapixels. This is 33. So basically, I figured we will find the difference between a 4 gig card and an 8 gig card with this. And you can look at memory use with tools and try to understand like how much of my GPU memory is being used here. But the best way to get at the question of whether or not memory capacity is a constraint is testing performance. And the reason for that is that GPUs will often have things in memory that are assets that are not necessarily needed to draw the next frame or the last frame, or they just sit there. And there's a more practical question of just like, when do I really run into a performance issue? And the OS-based tools that show you OS memory allocation won't tell you that. The thing that will tell you that is just testing performance. So I tested performance with Shadow of Mordor at these different resolutions in order to sort of just figure out when will we find differences between different cards. And the classic case here was the Radeon R9 390X versus the R9 290X. Same Hawaii chip, slightly different clock speeds, but if you look for the way that the different cards scale differently in terms of performance at different resolutions, then you can find if there's a difference between 4 gigs and 8 gigs. And indeed, when we tested, what we found is that the two cards perform or scale about the same from 2560 by 1440 to 4K. But at the two higher resolutions, up to 33 megapixels, then the 8 gig card scales up better. Its performance does not drop as much as the resolution increases. So there's a clear, measurable difference between the 8 gig card and the 4 gig card. This is way beyond how most people would play games, but it's the spot where we found a difference with this one of the most extreme games out there. Then you can layer on, as I did, the R9 Fury X with 4 gigs, and what we found is that indeed at really high resolutions, the Fury X also has a performance scaling issue compared to the 8 gig card. It gets slower at the two higher resolutions, to where even though the Fury X is a much bigger GPU, it's actually slower than the R9 390X because of the memory capacity constraint at these really high res settings. So there you have sort of a picture of resolution scaling. Interesting thing happens though when you bring the G-forces into the picture, which is that they tend to scale a little bit more nicely. The 12 gig Titan X and the 6 gig GTX 980 Ti, both of them based on the same GM200 chip, perform almost identically across the entire array of resolutions, so that you could say there's no really measurable difference between 6 gigs and 12 gigs up to 33 megapixels in this game. The crazy thing though is that the 4 gig GTX 980, although it's slower, also scales up in about the same fashion all the way to 33 megapixels, which tells you that Nvidia must be doing a better job of conserving or managing its memory on its graphics cards. The one case where we found the Nvidia card had some trouble scaling was the GTX 970 at 5760 by 3240 just hit a speed bump and dropped off compared to the 980. And that, I think, is verified evidence of that funky 3.5 gig config / 0.5 gig, like half gig break in the 970's memory that Nvidia neglected to tell people about when they first sold the cards, and then later sort of informed us what the deal was with it. And so it doesn't affect performance at 4K in any measurable way, but at 5760 by 3240, which I believe is 18 megapixels, then it does become a thing that you could measure. Again, we're talking about every one of the cards at 5760 by 3240 is below 30 frames per second. None of them are actually producing playable frame rates. So in order to find sort of the academic, here's the difference between X and Y in terms of memory capacity, we actually have dropped out of the point where anybody'd want to play a game this way. So just remember that when you're thinking about it. But the thing that sort of then the next step here is you overlay the Radeons, especially the R9 Fury X with its 4 gigs of memory and its sort of scaling issue, over a couple of GeForces, including the 980 with 4 gigs, which is a much lower end product. And at the higher 2 resolutions, the 980 basically matches the Fury X at 5760 by 3240 and beats it at 7680 by 4320, which means that probably Nvidia is doing a better job just managing memory in the card, using its drivers to prevent slowdowns. And we had one other case in our gaming tests where we saw a difference between 8 gigs and 4 gigs, and that was a Far Cry 4. And the 8 gig cards did not have these frame time spikes in Far Cry 4 that the 4 gig ones did, including the Fury and Fury X. And as you can see there, when we tested that, none of the GeForces, including the 3 gig GTX 980 Ti, really had that problem either. So there's a difference in brands between the GPUs and how they're managing memory in terms of this capacity constraint as well. So one possible explanation for the difference is the effectiveness of the compression routines that the GPUs build to compress color data. This is something that Nvidia and AMD have started talking about more in recent years as their GPUs have become more robust in their ability to do this kind of thing with delta-based compression. And when we tested all these cards using the B3D bandwidth test, it tests with both a random texture and a black texture. The random texture idea is it's incompressible, the black texture easily compressible. If you look at the delta between the two, you can see how much compression you're getting, basically, from the GPUs. And the Maxwell-based GPUs, including the GTX 980, there's a very big delta between the black and random textures. On the R9 Fury X, that delta is relatively smaller. And assuming, and this is a big assumption, I don't know for certain, but assuming that when that compressed data gets stored in the GPU memory, it's stored in some pack format where it actually saves capacity and not just bandwidth, then it's possible that the Maxwell GPUs get more out of the memory space that they have because they've got a higher degree of compression. And this is something I need to ask again for NVIDIA about this, but they haven't wanted to offer additional detail about how their chip works. And AMD, I tried to ask that question, didn't get an answer around the Fury review either. So I'm not certain about that, but it's a possibility that the GPU compression could be playing into this. So, my takeaway on all this is that you can find cases where basically the difference between 4 gigs and 8 gigs or more presents a measurable difference. In this game, which is one of the most intensive of today's games as far as we can tell with a quick, sort of survey, really that difference only comes out at above 4K resolutions. And the one example from Far Cry 4 on the Radeons, it seems to happen at 4K, but that's uncommon. And so for the most part, a 4 gig card is fine. There is a question about future-proofing, though. And for the $650 R9 Fury X, the $550 R9 Fury, it's a tough question. If you're talking about things that we haven't quite tested that are similar to what we tested, 5K displays, triple 4K, multi-GPU where there's some memory capacity overhead just to do that work and share it between GPUs, then it's quite possible that the R9 Fury and Fury X we'll have some challenges that AMD needs to manage. And we've already seen that right now, at least, Nvidia seems to do a better job with given the same amount of memory at managing that problem. So, guys, if you have questions about any of this, I'm happy to talk about it. But that's kind of my takeaway. And, you know, it was a quick test, but I think the results are interesting enough to sort of enlighten us a little bit and maybe direct some debates toward other topics now that we kind of have done this.
So some of our listeners might be wondering why you didn't just look to see how much memory was being used at any given time.
Like I said, the tools that do that look at like OS level memory allocation, and OS level memory allocation does not tell you what's actually happening on the GPU. In addition to that, the GPU may leave things in memory that are not entirely necessary. And so you could see a GPU whose memory is fully allocated. That does not mean that it's a GPU that's facing a serious performance constraint. There are things that can be evicted from memory that you would never pay a performance penalty for. The question that's relevant is, when does the memory capacity of the card become a performance problem? And to test that, you have to test performance. It's simply more complicated than X amount of RAM is in use and Y amount of RAM is in use over here, and therefore this card has a problem, this one doesn't. And the best way to know is to see how it performs.
Which is what you're here for. I'm so glad. This is something I've been wondering about for months and months. You see these new cards with so much RAM.
Yeah, it is. It's a weird question around the Fury X because it's just a weird part of its configuration, and it appears, you know, that the answer isn't entirely straightforward, that they have a problem, but it looks like they have a challenge to manage. So do we have other questions?
It's been pretty quiet here. I know Frumper15 was wondering when we'd see more SSD reviews, hopefully M.2 slots.
M.2 is not the first thing that Tony is working on. He's working on some value drives first. And so we should see a review from him in a week or two. And that will be the first of hopefully many. We need to get him up and rolling. So
I'm working closely with him on that, so
yep.
Hopefully we'll see something from him soon.
I would say that so far the M.2 stuff has been a little bit underwhelming, and I hope that changes, but I wouldn't hold my breath, honestly. I think it may be later this year or later than that before we see application level performance differences that really matter on that front. Love to be proved wrong, but...
Jeff, are you training Tony to use a word purportedly?
Purportedly,
yes. That is included in the starter kit that we issue to all of our writers.
Glad to hear it. Chuckla is wondering if we have any thoughts about Vulkan.
Vulkan is the next generation API that sort of comes after OpenGL. The best thought about Vulkan that I have for this week is just this. I think you guys posted the news that Google has decided to include Vulkan in Android.
Yes.
I didn't get into that in detail. I've been traveling, but we were kind of watching that because, you know, Apple did its own API, Metal, for graphics, and everybody seems to be doing their own API for everything. And I was worried that we were going to get another graphics API from Google for Android, and I'm really happy to see that we're not. I think it's way better for the whole world if they adopt the next generation OpenGL for that platform. So I'm glad it happened. And there's some SIGGRAPH has been going on, and there's some stuff going on in graphics, which is why there was some news around it. But you know, Vulkan is getting out there and being finalized, and things are being released. But I haven't poured through all of those developments yet, so I don't have anything more to say than that.
So I'm going to jump. Sorry, go on. Okay, I'm going to jump in. Selmar asks and says, will we see Intel's Thunderbolt/Alpine Ridge chip on upcoming motherboards? And the answer to that is yes. For background, Alpine Ridge, I guess it can be a Thunderbolt controller, but most people will probably see it as a USB 3.1 chip. Right now, like USB 3.1 is provided by like third-party controllers, like AS Media is the biggest one, I think. But Intel has its own chip. So, like when we did like our big burst of Z170 motherboard coverage, I think Gigabyte is the only one who's fully committed to using Intel's USB 3.1 controller in their products. But so I don't know if they have I mean, it seems highly unlikely that they have an exclusive agreement to do that. But if you want one of those controllers, and again, we haven't seen we haven't had an opportunity to benchmark any of that or see if there's any performance difference. But if you should want one for some reason, Gigabyte motherboards will have them.
Yeah, and I think we'll get Mark to test the difference between AS Media and Alpine Ridge and all that. Usually Intel does a better job on that stuff. And so I think Gigabyte may have an advantage in this cycle, having committed to that. Here's the deal with Thunderbolt. That chip, Alpine Ridge, supports Thunderbolt, but you have to get certification for the motherboard in order to get Thunderbolt. And that may cost more money. I don't think all the Gigabyte boards that have that chip will have that certification. Yeah,
Thunderbolt is probably not going to be a thing with those.
It may happen on some of the higher end ones.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody cares about that if they get good USB 3.1. But that's the deal. And so the chip supports both, and it is a question of what the motherboard maker chooses to do and whether it gets certified.
Question from BJ May 81. Does Nvidia have anything in the pipe that we'll see soon?
I think so. But we'll have to find out. They always have something, right? So I think there's a post coming in the morning. One of you guys wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't talk about that. But it's coming soon. It's in the pipe. So yeah, these things happen. Any other questions?
I don't see any. Somebody has one, they better type it quick.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I kept you guys way too long. We started late. Thank you for sticking with me. Let's go ahead and finish this up, and we'll move on to next time. So, Luke, what do you got for us?
I'd say ask what you guys are working on. How about you, Jeff?
I'm working on a case review. I can't disclose many details about it, but that'll be out next week. It should be pretty exciting.
A Tumblr?
No. Well, okay. I'm looking at it right now, and actually, now that you bring it up, that I can see it. I can see a little inspiration there, but
okay. So, case for you. What about you, Ben?
I am in between jobs right now. Well, not in between jobs. I'm in between news posts right now.
Yeah, we need to get you something to do next.
Yeah.
I saw that you might be getting or something.
Yeah, we might be trying to get you a mouse.
Oh, that's boring. All right, we'll figure something out.
Okay, yeah, but we'll figure something out.
I got some ideas, so we can talk about it.
Okay.
And you, Scott?
I'm working on some stuff that I can't tell you about yet, and then I'm also going to IDF next week and going to the barbecue before that, and so there's all that, and then probably maybe some other stuff too that I don't even know. It's chaos right now. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
Well, great. Thank you all for coming. This brings us to the end of the episode. If you have any questions for next time, email them to Jeff at jcampman@techreport.com. That is Campman with a K. As always, we'll do our best to answer all the questions we can. If you want more, be sure to check out techreport.com to get the latest scoop with our news and reviews. Until next time, I'm Luke, and thanks for listening.
Bye. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for joining the stream.
Have a good night, guys.
It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 184. The TR staff trembles in fear as Scott Wasson eats nachos.